Welcome to a video tutorial of Auction RPM. My name is Dan Zumwalt and I'll be your guide through this video regarding how to create invoices and how to manage your invoices. At this point, we have already scheduled the auction, we've registered bidders, and we've recorded winning bids. We now want to set aside time to create invoices and check people out. In order to lay a little groundwork for this, we're going to visit a couple of different places in the program. And we're going to start off with, under Auctions and Preparation, we're going to go to Schedule an Auction. For this new sample auction, the auction that we've been working on in this video tutorial series, I'm going to hit Edit here and I'm going to go to the Details tab. You notice that in the Details tab there is 4 taxation boxes here where you can identify the tax that is going to be charged at this auction. I'm only using one of these taxes because, of course, at this auction I only have one sales tax that I'm going to be charging. And this sales tax that I'm charging is sales tax code 1, and I've indicated that it is at 8.5%. Now, the way you set this tax, of course, is by pressing the auto locator button here, and when I do, I can see the different taxes that I've created up to this point. I've created this tax here at 8.5%. and that's the one that I've assigned to this auction. Also notice too that under approved payment types I have cash, check, and credit card, and that for the cash and checks I am expecting a 10% buyer premium, and for credit cards I'm expecting a 13% buyer premium. Here I'm indicating that indeed I am charging the buyer premium at this auction, which you can uncheck that if you're not. And also here I'm indicating that the buyer premiums that are being charged are taxable, and that they're taxable by invoice line item. I'm going to hit Done here and back out to the main menu, and now under Accounting we're going to go to Create Invoice. The first thing you want to do in the Create Invoice screen is make sure that you're working with the correct auction here. Right now I've indicated in other screens that we're working with auction number 2, but if you're not sure which auction that is, even by the date that is shown here, you can always press the auction number button and that will give you the list of auctions, including the auction location, auction name, and here we can see the new sample auction is auction number 2. At this point now, hypothetically, the person is standing in front of you and they want to check out. And usually in the case like that, the person knows what their bidder number is. If they don't know their bidder number for some odd reason, you can always press the bidder number button here and get a complete list of everybody that is waiting to check out. This is a list of people that have not invoiced at this time and that are waiting to be invoiced. You can see that we have a registered bidder count sitting down here, that of 3 in this case. And what I'll do now is I'm going to highlight the first bidder number 1 here by Emmett Hyam Company. I'm going to press Select, and now it's going to give me a detail as to what is being ready to be checked out at this time. Now, most commonly, you're going to be just simply going straight to Process Invoice and proceeding with the production of the invoice. But let's take a couple of minutes to see what other buttons are available here. You'll notice that we have 2 items listed here. And these items that are listed here are a computer for $100 and a couch for $150. Over here on the far right I have Invoice Now. These are checkboxes indicating which of these items I want to actually put on an invoice at this time. By default, all items that come up here are checked, indicating that we want to invoice all items that are outstanding for bidder number 1 in this case. But we do have these 2 buttons here. We have Set All Invoice Now and Reset All Invoice Now. Now the Invoice Now are these checkboxes here. Reset, if I press this, you'll notice it removes the check marks on all items that are listed here. Set All Invoice Now places check marks on all of them. Hypothetically, if you have, let's say 10, 15, 20 items here, and they wish to have one item on one invoice and all the rest on another invoice, which of course is common if you have people that are buying for not only themselves but for other people, then what you could do is hit Reset All Invoice Now. It would remove the check marks on all of the 15 or 20 items that are here, and then using your mouse you would just check the items that they specifically want to invoice at this time. Once that item has been invoiced under the Process Invoice button and you have completed that invoice and thus returned here, Then when you select that bidder number again, only the remaining items would then be listed here. I'll hit Set All Invoice now because I wish to invoice both this computer and the couch. Also notice too, you have the Edit Bid button here. The Edit Bid button allows you to change a bid amount on a given item that's loaded here. You'll notice here that this couch, for instance, is listed at $150. If I, for instance, found that the couch needs to be $100 instead of $150, then what you'd want to do is highlight the couch, you'd press Edit Bid, and then you would edit the amount here of, let's say, $150. We're going to change that to $100. And then I'll hit Save. It asks, are you sure you wish to make this change? Answer yes, and so now the couch is now only $100. You can also clear selected bid. Let's suppose that the couch is listed here for $100, but then, who knows, maybe somebody stole the couch or stole the computer. Well, if that bid is altogether wrong and is not a matter of being changed to another amount, but is just completely wrong and is not to be added to not only this person's account but no other account, then you can just simply clear that bid and this computer would drop off the list. You also have the option of adding item-specific buyer expenses here. In the case of vehicle auctioneers, for instance, you might highlight the vehicle and hit this button in order to add on dock fees, title fees, different fees that need to be added to the invoice itself. And then you have this button, Print Edit List. Let's suppose that the person has 15, 20, 30 items that are listed here, and they wish to go over each individual item bid by bid, making sure that the bid amounts are correct. And let's also suppose that there's 10, 20 people standing in line behind this person. Well, in order to keep everybody happy, what you can do is you can press the Print Edit List button, and what that will do is that will produce what is called an edit list. It's a listing of all of the items that this person has checked out with. Now in this case we're printing a invoice edit list that is called a vehicle detail, and it's specially designed for vehicles. Now in this case we're not selling vehicles, we're selling a computer and a couch. So what we need to do is we need to go back to settings and defaults, and we need to change the type of edit list that we wish to print. Let's go to Tools, Settings and Defaults, and I'm going to go to Print Settings, Invoices and Catalogs, and then we're going to go to Invoice Options. You notice here there's a setting here called Invoice Edit List Type, and I'm going to change it from Vehicle to Standard. And once I do that and save the changes, then what will happen now when I go back to Create Invoice under the Accounting menu, and of course I'm going to select Byam and Hyam. When I print the edit list now, it's going to produce a more appropriate edit list for non-vehicle auctions that simply lists the lot number, the quantity, the description, the unit price, and the extended price. Now I also have the option of including forecasted totals on the edit list as well. If I check that mark there and press this button again, then what is going to happen, it not only will give me the listing of the computer and the couch and all the items, unit prices, but it'll also give me the forecasted invoice totals for the unpaid bids. You can see here that for cash and check, the total will be this amount, $238.70, but if they pay in credit card, the buyer premium is different here than the other two, and so as a result, the total of the invoice would be different. So this gives your buyers the ability to see what the total would be when you complete the invoice. I'm going to press Exit here and return back to the Create Invoice screen. Well, now what I'll do is I'll process invoice. This will take me to the invoicing screen where now I can prepare the payments and finalize the invoice. You can see here that the computer and the couch are listed here with their respective winning bids. You'll also notice that there are check marks here under the tax code 1 column and the buyer premium column. Now because in schedule and auction that we saw earlier we only had one tax shown in that schedule and auction screen, as a result we only have one tax code column here where I can apply and waive the tax on the individual items that are here. We also have this buyer premium column where again we can use these check marks and we can apply or waive the buyer premium to the individual items that are listed here. In the totals area here, you can see that by default, it's automatically coming up with a buyer premium of 10%. That's because that's the buyer premium that is associated with the first available payment type, that being of cash. Also notice that the tax code 1, it's automatically set to the 8.5% that was defined in the schedule and auction screen. So, given all of these parameters, the total bids are $200, the buyer premium is 10%, which is $20, the subtotal is $220. Now 8.5% of the $220 is $18.70. Remember that the schedule and auction screen indicated that our buyer premium is taxable, so it is taxing that as well. And so as a result, our total due is $238.70. Now if I go ahead and press cash right now, indicating that I'm rendering a cash payment, now as a result, the $238.70 can be tendered. I'm going to hit proceed. And now, as you can see, the total paid is $238.70, and this field turns green. Green indicates that the invoice is now marked as fully paid. If there was some mistake as to what kind of payment was being tendered, you always have the option of hitting reset payments, and that allows you to remove any payments that are on file, and now you can correct that mistake. Maybe we meant to hit credit card and we accidentally hit cash. So now that I have hit reset payments, I can hit credit card now, and I can not only indicate how much is being paid, that of $245.21, and yes, that is different from the cash because we're charging 10% buyer premium for cash, but we're charging 13% on a credit card. So $245.21 is being paid on a credit card. Credit card number, you could enter the whole credit card number here if you wish, or you could simply just enter in the last 4 digits of the credit card number. The expiration date can be here, and then we'll hit proceed, and again the invoice is now marked as fully paid. One other thing too is that you do have the ability to toggle the taxation on this auction for this buyer. So let's say that it's not until you get here that the buyer suddenly reveals to you that they are not taxable, and they produce, of course, their tax documentation. You could use this button right here to waive the taxes on this given invoice, and that will not only uncheck these boxes here, but it would set the tax amount here to 0. I'll go ahead and hit Finalize Invoice, and doing so now will produce the invoice. Our sample auction company name and address appears at the top, the buyer information appears here, and then we have here the lot numbers and the amounts. Down at the bottom we have the totals, same totals that we saw earlier, and we have the payment information shown here, what kind of payments were applied to this invoice. If there were any kind of special invoice messages that we had entered into the settings and defaults area under messages, they would appear in this area at the bottom of the page. One other thing to note too about these invoices is that right now in settings and defaults I haven't identified a company logo. Now if I had put a company logo into Auction RPM, then this name and address and phone number would then be right aligned. It would be aligned to the right side of the page, and then the company logo would be produced in the upper left portion of this page, producing a very nicely presentable invoice. So I'm going to use the zoom factor here. I can zoom out and I can see the whole invoice in its entirety, or zoom into various parts of it as I so may wish. At this point, normal practice is to press print and print it to your printer, and then once you're done you would hit exit. That would return you back to this create invoice screen where now you can check out another person. I'm going to hit cancel here, and the next place I want to visit is the invoice management and review screen. Now the thing about Auction RPM is Auction RPM follows normal and natural accounting principles. What that means is, in the case of an invoice is referred to or is known as something called a source document. A source document, in proper accounting principles, is a document that can either be reprinted or voided, but it can never be changed. You do not want to have multiple versions of, let's say, invoice number 12, because if you did, and if somebody said, can you show me invoice number 12, you would have to ask, well, which one do you want? That's why you would never want to change what is actually shown on a real invoice. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to go into Invoice Management and Review. We're going to go in here and we're going to look at the invoices that have been recorded for auction number 2, the new sample auction. You can see here that I have indicated that I want to group invoices by bidder name, and so indeed the first and actually only bidder that has an invoice in this auction is now listed here, and I can press the plus sign here and see a listing under his name of all the invoices that we have produced for this buyer. Alternatively, I could click here and list invoices by invoice number. So invoice number 8 is simply listed there, or I could list them by bidder number. Now, since we've only done one invoice in this new sample auction, it may not be apparent exactly how useful this is. What I'll do is I'll switch back to our sample auction, and, well, of course, in the sample auction we don't have any invoices there, but suffice to say, we do have the ability to list all of the invoices that are necessary. They're shown here under invoices for selected auction. And in the case of a new sample auction, all I have to do is just click on the invoice number 8. We have the items listed there, and if we wanted to, we have at the bottom here the ability to reprint the invoice or to void it. Now, if you had not fully paid the invoice during the invoicing process that we were looking at earlier, we of course could press the Apply a Payment or Adjustment button here, and that would give us the ability to apply a payment to that invoice. If we didn't know what auction number the invoice was in, but we did know what invoice number it was, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to select by invoice number, and now we can get a full list of all invoices that were ever produced, and using the search field here, this familiar search field that appears on all selector screens, we can then type in the invoice number, since the arrowhead is in the invoice number column, and find the particular invoice that we want. Once we select it, then it'll be shown to us. One thing too about these invoices, once you have an invoice highlighted, you have the ability to keep notes about that invoice. Anytime the invoice is printed, an automatic note, it will be added to the notes field. Also, there's a tracking tab here where you can identify some key dates regarding this invoice. Maybe with respect to this invoice, you're going to be doing some shipping, and so as a result you have the ability to keep track of the will call date, the quote date, the shipping date, the buyer shipping notification date, what date you notified the buyer that the items were shipped. Also, you have the ability to identify the shipper information, what shipping company, UPS, FedEx, DHL, other, and perhaps the tracking numbers. So there's a lot of information that can be tracked regarding your invoices, and of course we've gone over the Create Invoice and Invoice Management. You can also use this option here to enter in payments for an invoice. This is synonymous with what we saw underneath the Invoice Management and Review screen, the button at the bottom there too. You also have this button here that allows you to print all open invoices. If you have at the end of the auction, maybe you have several bidders that have not yet invoiced out, well, you can use this button in order to automatically print all of the invoices for those buyers. And when you do, for each invoice you have two options. You can either increase the credit limit for the value of that invoice, or you can actually perform a full payment. Now, increasing the credit limit means that if the value of this invoice, let's say it's for $2,000, maybe the amount of that invoice goes beyond the credit limit for that buyer. And so that means that if you want to leave this invoice as unpaid, you have to increase the credit limit for that buyer. And that's what would automatically happen if you selected this option. This option would allow you to identify what payment type you wish to perform a full payment with. Maybe it's you want to say that you just want to apply a full cash payment or full credit card payment, what have you, whatever is appropriate for your operation there. And then hitting proceed would automatically produce all remaining invoices and invoice out everybody that has not yet been invoiced. It would print them as well, and then you could then distribute those invoices. Well, that'll conclude our discussion of the creating of an invoice and the invoice management and review screen. If you have any questions or comments about this video or any of the other videos that are on the Auction RPM website, please don't hesitate to give us a call at 209-588-1232. Thanks for listening. Hope you have a great day.